name is Alice Crary. At the moment, I'm a professor of philosophy at Oxford, and I'm also affiliated with a college there where I'm a tutor in philosophy and Christian ethics. Even as a young child, I think I suspected something was horribly amiss with human relations with animals, so it wasn't really surprised that when I started to study philosophy, I was already interested, even as a graduate student, in teaching animal ethics courses. But I think I also found it was a really useful way to be a moral philosopher. I had the idea really early on that a lot of the things philosophers said about animals were really unsatisfactory, and that we could learn something not just about animals, but also about how we think about human beings by thinking about what was wrong. And that became the center of the work that I do. I think some of the most important questions are methodological, and they need to be answered. I don't want to suggest that I think there are once and for all answers to them. They need to be answered in historical context. So there are questions about what's involved in seeing value, what kinds of demands it places on us to see value in animal life, and what's involved in getting others to see it. And connected to that, because I work on human beings and animals at the same time, there are analogous questions about what's involved in seeing and getting other people to see that properly seeing the value of human life is bound up with properly seeing value in animal life. I would say two things about how being with this group of people has had an effect on me. One of the issues I came in thinking about was sort of how to conceptualize the interplay between the struggle to see and place value appropriately on animals' lives and the struggle for something like environmental planetary health. And I found a lot of the conversations that we've had really helpful for thinking about that. And I would also add that there are people here with whom I am actively collaborating or planning to collaborate, people with whom I have taught or am planning to teach. And there are people here also who I hadn't planned to do research projects with, and I have new ideas for research projects and also institution building as a result. So it's a both institutional and also sort of pragmatic benefit of getting everybody together. It's been quite wonderful. When you ask about the next and most important questions, I think it might seem maybe surprising, I'm not sure, that I think they're strategic and they're contextual. So of course we need to do good research. Of course we need to have good critical social understanding of the issues that interest us. But the really difficult questions are how, once we see what we think a better outcome, a better way of living with animals, what it would be like, how do we get there? And there, I think we're looking at openness to all sorts of methods, and certainly not merely academic research, probably not even primarily that. We're thinking about artistic interventions, social movements, and we're thinking about collaborations with people in different places, working on things in different ways, and we need to improvise. There is no one top-down answer to questions like that. So finding the moment and even getting lucky is part of what we're doing, and I think those are the really hard questions. It's certainly true that if you tried to capture what's distinctive about the approach to animal ethics that I take, you could say something to the effect that I think that the empirical images of animals, I would say the same thing about human beings, but the empirical images of animals that we operate with in ethics are necessarily the product of efforts of moral imagination, even if we don't realize that that's the case. And that has one result of that is that it opens me up to placing value on methods that other researchers don't think of as essential. Even if they think they're important, they tend to think of them as having merely instrumental importance, meaning something like, well, we could get to the point of understanding animal lives in the way we need to without them, and possibly even should. Whereas I tend to think things like literature, perspectives from history and religion, the arts in general, kind of paradigm shifts in the way we see society that may come from social movements, can be internal to our ability to see animals and human-animal relations in the way that we need to. And so I'm interested in the work of filmmakers and literary artists that really gets us to look at things differently. And I don't think that those things are merely ornamental. I think they're essential. And when we talk about big, hard, strategic, political, methodological questions, I think that's helpful to bear in mind. For me, I would say I think of animals as our fellows on this earth. I think of them as mortal, vulnerable companions for us. And I tend to agree with what Pearl Buck once said about how we should judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable members. And I also think that once we recognize the extent to which human lives are entangled with animal lives, it shouldn't surprise us that treatment of animals is closely bound up with human flourishing, health, and survival.